How's it going, everybody? The Mythical Pickle here, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 video. And today, we will be answering the question you all have been contemplating. Can you beat Fallout 4 as a Kung Fu master? Now, without any further ado, let's lay down some ground rules for the challenge run this time around. To start off, we have some standard rules that are likely to be seen in future challenge runs. That is, no companions of any kind aside from quest mandatory ones, of course. No use of power armor for any reason aside from quest requirements. Weapon bash is allowed if absolutely necessary, but to prevent any kind of reliance on it, the basher perk is off the table. I must stay in character with all dialogue choices and fraction decisions. And last but certainly not least, I must beat the main quest. Now for the more unique rules. As the title suggests, I will have to rely solely on my knowledge of the martial arts to take out enemies. That means I can only use unarmed attacks. And to further the challenge, I also will be unable to use any unarmed weapons such as the brass knuckles or the power fist, as I feel this would take away from the whole point of the challenge. With that being said, there is also a armor restriction this time around because, as you'll see, I have a character that I must maintain. This means I can only use the clothes I start the game with, and can only use leg armor if absolutely necessary. And just like my last challenge run, we will be running a few mods to help the game function a little smoother, as well as match the theme we have set. I made it a point to only pick mods that will in no way make me overpowered or render the challenge useless, but rather make the challenge feel a little more fresh and engaging. Now, with all that out of the way, let's dive right in, shall we? And who better to act as a Kung Fu master than Bruce Lee? Yep, you guessed it, Jackie Chan, or better yet, his long-lost cousin, Smacky Chan. Yeah, I definitely didn't plan a whole challenge run around that name. Alright, I admit it. Don't judge me. Anyways, now that I got what somewhat resembles Jackie Chan, sorta, it's time to do a stat breakdown for our newly declared Kung Fu master. We've got to get my special stats properly spread so I can get the most out of my Fist of Fury as soon as possible. So, that's a 10 on strength, of course, to get the extra damage boost, as unarmed damage primarily scales through strength after all. 8 on endurance for a bit of health and extra stamina. 2 on agility, as everyone knows a good Kung Fu master is quick on their feet. And lastly, 5 on luck, because I need to be an idiot. No, not that kind of idiot. There we go. Now with abs ripped and headband tied, Smacky Chan was set loose into the Commonwealth. And oh, what a ride it's gonna be. First on the to-do list was to head for Diamond City. And luckily for me, I found some friends along the way, but they didn't feel like hanging out, so sadly I had to pulverize them all. Now I did take the normal route through Concord and pass by the Museum of Freedom, as I don't plan on interacting with the Minutemen this time around. I did skip it. And it seemed like more of a hassle than it was worth, considering I haven't even leveled up yet. But that changed quickly, as just at the mere sight of the museum, I was granted the newfound gift of the Iron Fist. Now, with this newfound courage, I decided to do a bit of a sneak attack on the dealers outside of the Drumlin Diner. And man oh man, were they no match for the power of Smacky Chan. Upon dispatching them, I continued forth to Diamond City, all while smacking a few green bean lovers along the way. Once I did finally reach the Great Green Jewel, I was of course met with Piper and friends in the lobby. I'd normally run right past them, so I felt I should do the right thing this time. Newsflash, it wasn't worth it. Now that's 3 minutes I'll never see again. Anyways, once I was finally inside, I went ahead and sold everything I possibly could for some much needed stim packs, as I had anticipated some quite interesting battles in my near future. Speaking of which, I talked to Ellie to get the main quest going and realized I hadn't entered Vault 111 yet, so I zoomed over to the vault and ripped the required holotape out of the hands of Nate's cold dead body. With that minor detour out of the way, I headed back down to the Boston Commons, hightailing it to the Park Street station, where I'm sure you can probably guess what came next. Nah, but to be honest, for as underleveled as he was, Smacky Chan still put the smackdown on every triggerman that so much as looked at him funny. Making my way through Vault 114 was pretty much the same until I made it to what I like to call the Room of Despair. Even after dropping a few of the gangsters with some well-placed elbows, their firepower proved to be quite overwhelming, so much so I was actually stuck in a consistent loop of dying before the loading screen even went away. So I was forced to backtrack a bit, and this time I played it safe and took out most of the triggermen without much of a fuss. Now with that cluster out of the way, I swiftly KO'd Dino and followed Nick up and out of the vault without much of a problem.
Skinny.
Like I said, not many problems at all. Once I was finally on the surface, Mr. Detective decided to take 3 to 4 business days to find his way out. A few moments later. Eventually he did breach the surface, and we were one step further to finishing the story. Next on the usual agenda, Smacky Chan told his sob story to Nick, to which he used those words to make an excuse to break and entering. Once we were done rifling through Kellogg's belongings, it was high time we met with the man himself. That's right, it was finally time to storm Fort Hagen. Now say what you will about Kung Fu, but metal or not, Smacky Chan is a true Kung Fu master, and it shows. And just like before, I gave Kellogg not even a moment to think as I smacked him repeatedly with my fist of steel. This worked so well, I actually ended up stun-locking him in a corner, rendering him unable to attack, let alone use his infamous stealth boy. Now with Kellogg's brain in my not-so-metaphorical hands, it was time to pay old Valentine a visit again. After explaining what happened and pitching him an awesome idea for a new Kung Fu movie, he recommended we head down to Good Neighbor to get my brain scanned, which I found mildly insulting until I realized he meant Kellogg's brain, to which I agreed and ventured forth to Good Neighbor, where I was met with a very warm welcoming party. Jokes aside, it was time I talked to Dr. Amari, to which followed a very long look into a TV screen. Upon nearly reaching complete blindness, I was finally set free. Though when exiting the building, Nick Valentine was waiting to jump scare me with the voice of a grizzled mercenary.
Hope you got what you were looking for inside my head.
So I left his weird ass there and made my way to the glowing sea in search of the one, the only, Virgil. But on my way there, I found something I'd actually never come across before in Fallout 4. A pre-war tank. It was accompanied by a few gunners naturally, but other than a strange sight, there wasn't much else to offer, so I continued on my trek through the waste, where I met up with the leader of the Children of Adam, whom I was successfully able to persuade in giving me the whereabouts of Virgil's hideout. With the newfound information, I beelined it straight to the BFG's cave. After discussing a possible acting role for him in Smacky Chan's upcoming movie, Virgil agreed to help me build a teleporter to infiltrate the Institute, which meant it was time to face the gunners, though this was no small feat. As you can see, my punches were no match for the turrets that were strewn about the building. But, ignoring them, I completely and utterly annihilated every last gunner in the complex, which led us straight to the next boss battle, the Courser. Now, I went into this thinking I was about to have the Battle of the Century on my hands, but honestly at this point, Smacky Chan was pretty well leveled, and while it wasn't very quick, I made easy work of him with some well-placed bops on the nose. Now with the Courser chip in tow, I made my way down to the Old North Church, where I made a few new friends. Enter the Railroad. I made good with Desdemona, and was able to get Tinker Tom to decrypt the Courser chip. And, just when I was about to leave with my teleportation sequence codes, Deacon stopped me at the entrance asking for some help, and perhaps some recognition from the rest of his crew in return. Now, typically I wouldn't even think twice about siding with the Railroad, as these radical synth sympathizers are, well, just a little odd in the way they conduct business. But it actually got me thinking that I've already sided with the Minutemen and the Institute in previous runs, and the Brotherhood of Steel seemed way too far off from Smacky Chan's character and build. So that left me with only one other option. I was gonna have to side with the Railroad. Now, with those semantics out of the way, I decided to go along with Deacon's little quest line, but man oh man, was that a mistake, as it took the better half of 10 minutes to even get him to talk to me, as he was far more interested in hunting down every last ragstag in the local area, including their extended family. But after his killing spree concluded, we journeyed over to talk to the informant, which tipped us off to the sewers beneath Slocum Joe's, where we fought valiantly through hordes of synths, and as no surprise, Smacky Chan was still standing on the other side. Now that I finished up Deacon's little side quest, we headed back to the Railroad, where they welcomed me into their rebellion with open arms, and then immediately tried to put me to work. We love that. But at the same time, I was also able to convince them to help me build the teleporter to infiltrate the Institute. Though, before I could build it, we needed a bigger, less subterranean base of operations. So, after speaking to Tinker Tom and Pam, I went to clear out Sunshine Tidings Co-op with nothing but my bare hands. Upon making sure all the ferals took an early dirt nap, the settlement was primed and ready to begin building. Now this is where things took a turn for the sinister. Before I hopped into the now fully functional teleporter, Desdemona felt the need to request that I, quote-unquote, play along with the Institute and their shenanigans so that the Railroad had a better understanding of what they were up against. And not only that, but there was actually a mole within that I needed to find as well. With that little pep talk concluded, I was swiftly transported into the Institute, where I proceeded as normal, speaking to my boy Sean and his robo-double. After which, I introduced myself to all the heads of the department and finally found the mole within the Institute, Liam Bennett, or better known as Patriot. Interestingly enough, Patriot was actually working directly with a janitorial synth by the name of Z114 on ways to get the synths out of the Institute safely. Now, the two of them discussed a plan while I was just kinda there. Then Patriot asked if I could receive some admin codes for a very special security door where they would then evacuate the remaining synths. I agreed and headed down to the one and only location that might house such a code, that being the Cambridge Polymer Labs. After somehow finding my way through that labyrinth, I had what I needed to proceed with the plan. Returning back to the Institute, it was time to clear out a path for the synths to exit, which required some elbow grease, but that is something Smacky Chan was no stranger to at this point. Now, despite Smacky Chan's direct traitorous behavior, it was still business as usual in the think tank. And at this point, I had to carry out some routine Institute dirty work. But, funny enough, Father had his sights set on one of the railroad's base of operations, Bunker Hill. After informing the squad about the Institute's plans, I went into the Battle of Bunker Hill, starting by taking out the Courser, which was surprisingly easy. With that done, I made haste to the bunker portion of Bunker Hill. After successfully liberating the synths housed there, Father was not exactly happy to see me. But whether he cared or not, he continued to request for my help. And regardless of how little I wanted to help the Institute again, the railroad's main quest required it. So, it was time for Smacky Chan to get to work. That out of the way, I was going to return to the surface and try to find a way to continue the main story, but before I could, Z114 informed me that the Brotherhood of Steel somehow got the location of the railroad HQ. With no time to waste, I headed back to the Old North Church to make sure the Brotherhood of Steel remembered the name Smacky Chan. All of the normal BS soldiers were pretty easy to take out, but I swear every time a captain in power armor came out, it felt like I was in a mini boss fight. As I had nearly no armor penetration with my bare hands, they really took a while. But luckily, most of them were dumb enough to eject their fusion cores in an attempt to kill me, only for them to have to ditch the suit and get absolutely handled by Smacky Chan's Fist of Fury. With the Brotherhood pushed off for now, it was time for some good old retaliation, Kung Fu style. Enter Operation Red Glare. Now that the Brotherhood was no longer going to be a problem, the Railroad refocused its sights on the Institute. It was finally time to save the Synth rebels and destroy the Institute. Once I let Z114 know what time it was, he helped me get the rest of the Railroad inside, meaning Phase 1 was officially underway. So I made my way down to the reactor room, where I promptly placed a very powerful explosive on the core, and was luckily transported away just before my untimely ghoulification. Now our mission was almost complete. All that was left was to push the button.
Desdemona.
It is done.
And just like that, the nuclear option quest was finally complete, proving once and for all that yes, you can indeed beat Fallout 4 as a Kung Fu master. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Also, if you guys have any ideas on challenge runs I should do next time, drop a comment down below. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and as always, remember to smile.